He learned early that being the steady one made life easier for everyone else. It wasn't something anyone sat him down and taught him, not a rule written on a wall, but it showed up in small moments that stacked quietly until they felt like truth. When the house got loud, he stayed calm. When the bills showed up and the adults' voices changed, he found a way to be useful. When someone needed something fixed, carried, handled, explained, he stepped forward before the request had fully formed. People noticed. They praised him in soft ways that sounded like love. They called him mature. They said he was the responsible one. They said he had a good heart. He absorbed all of it like a blueprint for how to be a man. As he got older, the steadiness became a habit, and the habit became an identity. He didn't see it as sacrifice. He saw it as character. It felt clean to be the person people could count on. It felt like order in a world that always seemed to be leaning toward mess. He liked that his phone rang and it was always something he could solve. He liked that his presence made problems smaller. He liked that people relaxed when he showed up, like the weight had been transferred. His brother was the opposite in the way younger brothers often are. A little brighter, a little looser, charming in a way that made people forgive him easily. He could laugh his way out of situations that would have made other men look irresponsible. He had a talent for turning mistakes into stories. He had a smile that made apologies sound believable even when the behavior repeated. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't malicious. He just lived like life would bend around him the way it always had. When they were kids, it was small stuff. He'd borrow something and forget to return it. He'd leave a mess behind and act surprised when someone noticed. He'd break something and swear he didn't touch it. Their mother would sigh, their father would shake his head, and then eyes would drift toward the older brother who always seemed to know what to do. He'd step in, fix the thing, smooth the moment, keep the atmosphere from turning sharp. As adults, the patterns didn't disappear. They just got heavier. The calls came more often, sometimes late at night, sometimes early in the morning. The brother's name would light up his screen, and he would answer without thinking, already bracing for the familiar tone. There was always some kind of minor crisis that felt urgent, because the brother's voice made it sound urgent. A car that wouldn't start, a landlord threatening a fee, a girlfriend upset about something he didn't understand, a job schedule that got messed up, a bank card locked, a deadline missed, a story full of small errors that stacked into a problem. "You busy?" the brother would ask, but he never really waited for the answer. The steady brother would pause just long enough to pretend he was considering his own life. Then he would say, "Nah, what's up?" And the relief on the other end of the line would feel like its own reward. Sometimes he would drive across town with a spare key. Sometimes he would sell money he didn't really want to part with. Sometimes he would make phone calls on his brother's behalf, smoothing problems down with a calm voice and a willingness to stay on hold. Sometimes he would show up in person because the brother didn't like feeling alone in his mess. It never felt like he was being used. It felt like family. He told himself that brothers are supposed to do that. He told himself it wouldn't always be like this. He told himself his brother would eventually settle into himself, find balance, stop needing so much. He told himself it was just a phase, even as the years passed and the phase became the relationship. He was busy too, though. His own life was not empty. He worked hard. He was building something slowly, not loudly, but with intention. He had a job that expected him to be dependable, which fit him almost too well. When coworkers were late, he covered. When projects got complicated, he took them on. When deadlines came close, he stayed later without being asked. People trusted him because he had never given them a reason not to. That trust came with weight, but he wore it like a suit he'd grown used to. His friends leaned on him in similar ways, not because they were bad people, but because they had learned he would always show up. He was the one who organized, the one who drove, the one who reminded everyone of dates and times, the one who paid and got paid back later, sometimes never. When someone needed to vent, he listened. When someone needed a favor, he handled it. He didn't resent it. He didn't even question it. It felt normal, like being the solid one was simply the role he had been assigned by life. Even with women, the pattern followed him like a shadow. He was attentive, consistent, patient, the kind of man women would describe as safe and steady. He would check in, he would remember details, he would be there. He liked being the man who could be counted on. He liked the way it made him feel grounded. He liked the feeling of being needed, even when he told himself he didn't. He didn't realize, not yet, how quickly being needed can turn into being expected. He didn't realize how silently appreciation can rot into entitlement when you never interrupt it. It started to show up as fatigue, the kind that didn't go away with sleep. He would wake up and feel like he had already spent part of himself before the day began. He would sit in his car outside his apartment and stare at the building for an extra minute, not wanting to go in because going in meant being reachable. He would look at his phone and feel his chest tighten when it buzzed, not because he feared bad news, but because he feared another request. He didn't call it burnout. That word sounded dramatic. He didn't call it resentment. That sounded ugly. He called it being tired, because tired felt harmless. One evening, he sat on his couch with his shoes still on, staring at the ceiling while the television played something he wasn't watching. The room was dim, the air slightly stale. He had meant to go to the gym after work. He had even packed a bag. But his brother had called right as he was leaving the office. "Bro, I'm stuck," the brother had said, voice full of that familiar mix of confidence and panic. "My car won't start and I gotta be somewhere." He had gone. Of course he had gone. He had driven across town, found his brother leaning against his car with his hands in his pockets, like he was waiting for someone else's problem to solve itself. The steady brother had jumped the battery, listened to his brother joke about how cars always act up when he's got plans, watched him drive off with a grin and a wave. He had come home afterward and felt something hollow. Not anger, just emptiness, like he had poured energy out and nothing had poured back. His phone buzzed again while he lay there, and his body reacted before his mind could. A small tightening, a flare of irritation, a desire to ignore it. He picked it up anyway. It was a friend asking if he could help move something tomorrow morning. He typed yes without thinking, then stared at the message after he sent it like he had just volunteered for something he didn't want. He set the phone down and felt a quiet, shameful thought rise. What would happen if I said no? The thought didn't feel like a plan. It felt like a question that had been waiting under his life for years, finally finding space to breathe. He didn't answer it that night. He just lay there, listening to the hum of the city outside his window, feeling the weight of his own reliability like something pressing down on his chest. A few days later, a small opportunity appeared, the kind of opportunity that should have felt simple. His car needed work. Nothing dramatic, just maintenance that couldn't be postponed. The mechanic had said he would need to keep it overnight. He could still get to work, but it would require effort. It would require someone to show up for him. He thought about calling his brother. The idea came with a strange discomfort, like stepping into unfamiliar terrain. He wasn't used to needing. He wasn't used to asking. He was used to being the person who handled things quietly. He debated it for a while, walking around his apartment as if movement would help him decide. He opened the fridge, closed it. He looked out the window. He sat down, stood up again. Finally, he picked up his phone and called. His brother answered on the second ring, voice bright. "What's good?" he said. The steady brother paused. "You doing anything tomorrow morning?" he asked. There was a short silence, the kind that usually meant his brother was already doing mental math. "Why?" the brother asked. "I got to drop my car off," he said. "Mechanic keeping it overnight. I just need a ride back after I leave it." The brother let out a small laugh, not mean, just surprised. "You need me?" he said, like it was a joke. The steady brother smiled even though nobody could see it. "Yeah," he said, "just once." Another pause. Then, in the same casual tone he used when he declined plans, the brother said, "I can't, bro. I got something tomorrow." The sentence landed so quickly it didn't even feel real at first. The steady brother's mind tried to smooth it over automatically, tried to assume there was a good reason. He waited for the brother to explain, waited for the words to soften it. "What you got?" he asked. The brother hesitated. "Just stuff," he said. "I'm linking with someone. It's already set." The steady brother stared at the wall in front of him and felt something move under his ribs. Not anger, not sadness, just a shift, like a weight sliding into a new position. "All right," he said calmly. "It's cool." "It's not like that," the brother added quickly, as if he sensed something. "You know I would if I could." The steady brother didn't answer right away. He was listening not to the words, but to the ease behind them. He was hearing how simple no sounded on his brother's tongue. He was hearing how little it cost him. "Yeah," he said. "I get it." They hung up. The call ended. The room stayed the same. The light through the blinds stayed the same. But something in him had changed quietly, like a door that had been open for years had finally clicked shut. He handled the car situation himself. He took an Uber in the morning. He got to work. The day moved forward. Life didn't collapse. The world didn't end. But the denial sat in him like a pebble in a shoe. Small, constant, impossible to ignore once you noticed it. As the week went on, he found himself replaying the call in his mind at odd moments, in the elevator, at his desk, while waiting in line for coffee. He remembered the laugh in his brother's voice when he heard the request. "You need me?" He remembered the casual, "I can't." He remembered the lack of detail, the lack of effort to rearrange anything. He tried to dismiss it. He tried to be mature about it. He tried to tell himself his brother had his own life. He tried to tell himself not to keep score. But his mind kept circling one thought. He doesn't move for me the way I move for him. That thought was dangerous because it threatened the identity he had built. If he wasn't being steady out of love, what was it? If his reliability wasn't being met with equal care, what did that mean about the relationships he had been proud of? He kept answering calls. He kept showing up. But his body started noticing the cost in a new way. He felt annoyance faster. He felt tired sooner. He felt his patience thinning, like a rope slowly fraying. A few days after the car incident, his brother called again. "Bro," the brother said, voice already animated, "I need you." The steady brother sat at his desk at work, papers spread out in front of him. He had a meeting in 20 minutes. His lunch was untouched. His head was already full. "What's up?" he asked. "My rent," the brother said. "I'm short, I'm really short. They talking about fees, bro. I just need a little. I'll pay you back Friday." The steady brother stared at the corner of his desk and felt his stomach tighten. He could feel the old habit rising, the automatic yes. He could also feel the pebble in his shoe. "How much?" he asked. The brother named a number that wasn't small. It wasn't life-ending for the steady brother, but it wasn't nothing. It was the kind of number that would make him reorganize his own plans. He took a slow breath. "I can't," he said. The word left his mouth softly, almost like he hadn't meant to say it. There was silence on the other end, a silence that felt thicker than before. "What?" the brother asked, and the tone had shifted. "I can't right now," he repeated. "I got a lot going on." Another pause. "Bro," the brother said, voice sharper now. "What you mean you can't? It's just for a few days." The steady brother felt his heart beat heavier. He kept his voice calm. "I'm not doing it," he said. The brother let out a breath that sounded like disbelief. "Nah, that's crazy," he said. "You always got me." The steady brother swallowed. "Not this time," he said, and he surprised himself with how steady the sentence came out. The brother's laugh was not friendly now. It was a short, sharp sound. "You acting different," he said. The steady brother felt his jaw tighten. "I'm acting normal," he said. "I'm just saying no." The brother's voice rose slightly. "Since when?" he asked. "Since you've been doing better, you've been moving funny." The steady brother stared at his desk and felt the conversation shifting into something he didn't want. He could feel the brother reaching for a story that made the no feel like betrayal instead of a boundary. "It's not about me doing better," he said. "It's about you needing money again." The brother went quiet for a second, then spoke with a coldness that felt unfamiliar. "So you judging me now?" he said. "That's what we on?" The steady brother closed his eyes briefly. He felt a heaviness settle in his chest. "I'm not judging you," he said. "I'm just not doing it." The brother exhaled hard. "Wow," he said. "Okay." The word okay sounded like a threat. The line clicked and the call ended without a goodbye. The steady brother sat there, phone still against his ear, listening to nothing. He lowered the phone slowly and stared at it like it was something he didn't recognize. His mouth felt dry. His hands were steady, but inside, he felt a tremor, like he had stepped off a ledge and was waiting to see if he would land. His meeting started 20 minutes later. He sat in the room and nodded at the right moments. He spoke when he was supposed to speak. He wrote notes he didn't read back. Underneath the professional calm, he felt something raw, something he didn't have language for yet. It wasn't guilt, it wasn't relief. It was a mix of both, tangled with grief. Later that evening, he checked his phone and saw messages from his brother. "You really gonna do me like that? I thought you was different. You always talk about family, but you're gonna leave me hanging?" The steady brother stared at the screen, feeling his stomach twist. He didn't reply. He didn't want to feed the energy. He didn't want to argue. He didn't want to explain. Explanation felt like begging for understanding, and he was tired of begging in ways he hadn't even realized were begging. A couple hours later, his mother called. He answered, because he always answered. "Hey," she said, voice calm but careful. "Your brother said y'all got into it." "We didn't get into it," he said. "He asked me for money. I said no." A pause. "Why?" she asked, and the question wasn't accusatory, but it carried expectation. It carried the weight of years where he had been the solution. He swallowed. "Because I don't want to," he said, and his voice sounded strange to his own ears. It sounded like someone else. His mother sighed. "He's stressed," she said. "You know how he gets." The steady brother stared at the dark window in front of him. Outside, headlights moved slowly through the street. "I'm stressed too," he said quietly. His mother was silent for a second, then said, "He's your brother." The sentence landed like a familiar chain. He had heard versions of it his whole life. Family first. Be the bigger man. Don't hold grudges. You know he needs you. He felt his chest tighten. "I know he's my brother," he said. "That's why I've been there." His mother's tone softened. "I'm not saying you haven't," she said. "I'm just saying he needs support." He almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was predictable. He felt something inside him turn cold, not toward his mother, but toward the script. "I needed support the other day," he said. "What do you mean?" she asked. He hesitated. He could feel the words forming. He could feel how dangerous it would be to say them out loud, how once they were spoken they couldn't be swallowed again. "My car," he said. "I asked him for a ride. He said no." A pause, longer this time. Then his mother said, "He probably had something going on." The steady brother nodded even though she couldn't see it. "Right," he said. "He had something going on." His mother sighed again, a tired sound. "Baby, you know he's not like you," she said. "You're the responsible one." The sentence landed with a quiet violence, not because she meant harm, but because it revealed the shape of the trap. You're the responsible one. You're the one who can handle it. You're the one who doesn't need anything. You're the one who holds the family up. He felt his throat tighten. "So because I'm responsible," he said slowly, "I'm supposed to fix everything forever." His mother didn't answer right away. When she did, her tone was defensive. "That's not what I said," she said. "It's what it is," he replied, and his voice stayed calm even as his heart beat hard. His mother said his name softly, like she was trying to soothe him. "You're taking this too personal," she said. He stared at the floor. "It is personal," he said quietly. They ended the call gently, with half words and softened tones, like a disagreement wrapped in love. But after he hung up, the room felt colder. His phone felt heavier in his hand. He sat on the edge of his couch and stared at the blank television screen, seeing his own reflection faintly, a man sitting alone in a room that didn't ask anything of him. He expected his brother to call again that night. He didn't. He expected an apology. He didn't get one. He expected some sign that he mattered beyond what he provided. The silence that followed felt like an answer he hadn't been ready for. The next few days were strange, not because his life changed dramatically, but because the air around him felt different. His phone still buzzed, but the buzzing started to feel like pressure instead of connection. Friends asked favors, co-workers asked for help, family members asked for little things. Each request felt like it carried an echo now, an echo of his brother's okay, the coldness in it, the way quickly people could turn when the answer wasn't what they expected. He started saying no more often, not as a rebellion, but as an experiment. He wanted to see what would happen. When a friend asked him to drive across town to pick something up, he said, "I can't." The friend replied with a joking, "Wow, okay," and then didn't text him for 2 days. When a coworker asked him to stay late again, he said, "Not tonight." The coworker looked surprised, then slightly annoyed, then said, "All right," with a tone that made him feel like he had failed some invisible test. When a woman he'd been seeing texted him late to come over, he said, "Not tonight, I'm tired." She replied, "You always tired now," and then didn't answer his next message. Each moment was small, each moment was not dramatic, but together they formed a pattern that was hard to deny. The moment he stopped being automatic, the moment he stopped being predictable, people reacted. Not always angrily, sometimes with silence, sometimes with subtle distance, sometimes with jokes that weren't fully jokes. He began to understand something without naming it. His steadiness had been currency. People had been spending it. And when he stopped handing it out, they noticed the change not as growth, but as a loss. One weekend, his brother showed up at his apartment unannounced. The knock on the door was heavy and familiar, the kind of knock that assumed the door would open. He stood up slowly, heart already tight, and walked to the door. When he opened it, his brother stood there with a half-smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Yo," the brother said, stepping in without waiting to be invited, like he owned space wherever he stood. The steady brother closed the door behind him and watched his brother look around the apartment as if he was inspecting a life. The brother's eyes landed on small details, the clean kitchen, the neat couch, the calm atmosphere. For a second, something like envy flickered across his face, then disappeared under charm. "You been on your grown man stuff," the brother said, trying to sound light. The steady brother didn't smile. "What's up?" he asked. The brother shrugged, paced a little, hands in his pockets. "I'm just checking on you," he said. "You've been acting weird." The steady brother leaned against the wall near the kitchen, arms relaxed, posture calm. "Weird because I said no," he said. The brother's smile tightened. "Nah," he said. "Weird because you moving like you don't care." The steady brother stared at him. "I've been caring," he said quietly. "That's the whole point." The brother scoffed softly. "Bro, you making this deep?" he said. "I just needed help. You made it a thing." The steady brother felt the room tilt slightly. He looked at his brother's face, at the ease with which he could rewrite the story. "I just needed help. You made it a thing." The steady brother felt something in his chest settle into clarity. "You didn't need help," he said. "You needed me." The brother frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you call me when your life gets messy," the steady brother said, voice calm, "and you expect me to clean it up." The brother's jaw tightened. "You tripping?" he said. "That's what family do." The steady brother nodded slowly. "Right," he said. "That's what family do." The brother leaned forward slightly, eyes sharper now. "So why you ain't doing it?" he asked. The steady brother looked at him for a long moment. He could feel years of habit trying to rise, trying to soften the moment, trying to turn it into a joke. He could feel the old version of himself wanting to keep peace, wanting to be the good man, wanting to be the bigger brother. He didn't. Because when I needed you, he said quietly, you said no. The brother blinked like he hadn't expected that to be brought into the room. Then he laughed, a short laugh, defensive. Bro, he said, you mad about a ride? The steady brother's gaze stayed steady. It wasn't the ride, he said. It was how easy it was for you to say no. The brother's smile faded. I had plans, he said. You always got plans, the steady brother replied, and the sentence came out softer than it could have, but it still landed. The brother's face shifted. The charm thinned. The entitlement rose. So you keeping score now? He said. That's what we doing. The steady brother exhaled slowly. I didn't keep score, he said. I just noticed the game. The brother stepped closer, voice louder now. Man, you really changed, he said. You got a little money or a little stability, and now you acting like you too good. The steady brother felt the accusation settle in the room like smoke. Too good. The same phrase people always use when you stop being available. He looked at his brother and felt sadness more than anger, because the brother had reached for the easiest story, the story that made the steady brother the villain. It was safer to believe that than to face his own entitlement. I'm not too good, the steady brother said. I'm just tired. The brother laughed again, sharper. Tired of what? He snapped. You got it good. The steady brother stared at him. You think I got it good because you see the outside, he said. You don't see what it costs. The brother's eyes narrowed. What costs? He said. You just doing what you're supposed to do. The steady brother felt the sentence hit him like a confirmation. Supposed to. That word held the whole problem. It held the entitlement. It held the way his brother saw him, not as a man with a life, but as a role. He took a slow breath. He felt his voice steadying in a way that surprised him. I'm not supposed to do anything, he said quietly. I choose to. The brother stared at him, and for a moment his face looked younger, confused, like the world had shifted, and he didn't like the new shape of it. Then the brother's expression hardened. Whatever, he said, turning away. You on some fake deep stuff now. He walked toward the door like he was leaving, then paused and turned back, eyes flashing. Just remember, he said, voice low, when you need something, don't come to me. The steady brother felt the threat land, and he realized how absurd it was, as if he'd been coming to his brother all along, as if the relationship had ever been balanced enough for that sentence to hold weight. He nodded once. All right, he said. The brother looked at him like he expected him to argue, like he expected him to plead. When the plea didn't come, the brother's face shifted again, a flicker of discomfort. He opened the door and stepped out, then said over his shoulder, You really disappointing me, bro, like it was a final weapon. And then he was gone. The door clicked shut. The apartment fell silent. The steady brother stood there for a long moment, not moving. He felt his heart beating, not fast, just heavy. He listened to the quiet like it was a new language. He expected his phone to buzz. He expected someone to call. He expected the familiar sense of being needed to rush back in and fill the space. Nothing happened. He walked to the couch slowly and sat down, hands resting on his knees. The air in the room felt still. Outside, the city moved as usual, cars passing, distant voices, life continuing. Inside, he felt a strange mixture of grief and relief, tangled so tightly he couldn't separate them. He thought about all the times he had shown up for his brother, the late-night drives, the money he'd sent, the awkward conversations with landlords and bosses, the way he had defended his brother to their parents, making excuses, softening the truth. He thought about the way his brother had smiled at him afterward, grateful for a moment, then slipping back into the same cycle. He thought about the one time he had asked for something simple, and how easily it had been denied. He thought about how his mother had tried to smooth it over, how she had leaned on the identity she had given him. You're the responsible one. He realized, sitting in the quiet, that being responsible had been convenient for everyone else. It had allowed them to stay loose. It had allowed them to stay messy. It had allowed them to grow without consequences because he had been absorbing consequences on their behalf. That realization did not make him feel powerful. It made him feel older. His phone lay on the coffee table. The screen was dark. He looked at it and remembered how often it was lit with requests, how often it was filled with urgency that wasn't his. He waited for it to light up again, for his brother to text, for his mother to call, for someone to try to patch the tear. The phone stayed quiet. He stood up and walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, drank it slowly. He could still hear his brother's voice in the apartment, the accusation, the entitlement, the way quickly gratitude had turned into anger. He leaned his forearms on the counter and stared at the wall, letting the feelings move through him without trying to fix them. He had spent his whole life fixing. Fixing was his reflex. Fixing was his comfort. There was nothing to fix now. He went to his bedroom and changed into something comfortable. He turned off the lights. He sat back on the couch and let the darkness settle around him. In the quiet, memories came in soft waves. Family gatherings where his brother laughed too loud and everyone let it slide. Holidays where his brother showed up late and people acted like it was normal. Times when his brother's charm had turned mistakes into jokes and his steadiness had turned into expectation. The entire history of their dynamic played in his mind like a film he had never watched closely until now. He realized something else then, something that made his stomach tighten slightly. He didn't know who he was without the role. He had been the helper for so long that the idea of being just himself felt unfamiliar. If nobody needed him, what was he? If he wasn't solving, what was he worth? If he wasn't the dependable one, what did people love about him? The questions sat in the dark, not loud, just present. His phone buzzed once and his heart jumped automatically. He reached for it too fast, then stopped himself mid-motion, noticing his own reflex as if he was watching another man. He let the phone buzz again, then picked it up slowly. It was a notification from a random app, not a call, not a message, nothing important. He set the phone back down and felt a strange emptiness spread through him, followed by a quieter feeling underneath it. Peace. Not the kind of peace that feels triumphant, not the kind of peace that feels like closure, the kind of peace that feels like a room after people leave, when the air finally stops moving. He sat there in the darkness and listened to his own breathing. He thought about reaching out to his brother, not to apologize, but to soften the fracture. The urge was familiar. The urge to be the one who repairs. The urge to keep everyone comfortable even if it costs him. He let the urge pass. He thought about his mother. He thought about her voice, the way she had tried to pull him back into the role. He understood her. He didn't hate her. She wanted the family to stay intact, and intact meant him holding the weight. He couldn't do it anymore. The realization did not arrive like a victory speech. It arrived like exhaustion. He stayed up for a while, letting the night move around him. At some point, he stood up and walked to the window, lifted the blinds slightly, and looked out at the street. The city lights glowed faintly. A few cars passed. Somewhere, someone was laughing. Somewhere, someone was calling someone else for help. The world was full of needs. He lowered the blind and stepped back. When he finally lay down to sleep, it took time. His mind kept replaying the moment at the door, his brother's eyes, the threat that didn't make sense, the disappointment used like a weapon. He kept hearing the phrase, "You changed," as if change was something shameful. He realized how often people say that when you stop being useful to them. He drifted toward sleep slowly, like a boat moving away from shore. He didn't know what the relationship with his brother would look like tomorrow. He didn't know how long the silence would last. He didn't know if he would be pulled back into the old role by guilt or habit. He only knew that tonight, for the first time in a long time, nobody was asking him for anything. The phone stayed dark. The room stayed quiet. And in that quiet, he felt the strange weight of being alone with himself, not as a punishment, not as a reward, just as a fact. Somewhere deep inside, something shifted. not a lesson, not a declaration, just a new awareness settling into place. He closed his eyes and let the night hold him, lingering in the space between grief and peace, unsure which one would stay longer.